All right, today we're going to peel back the layers of history to look at a figure you might not know by name, but whose influence, well, you can still feel it today. We're talking about Clement of Rome, a key architect of the early Christian church.
Okay, let's just pause on that for a second. That is a massive claim, right? We're talking about one person whose ideas in the chaotic years right after the apostles basically laid down a blueprint for structure and belief that would echo for literally 2 millennia.
So that's the big question for us today. Who was this guy? He wasn't some emperor or a famous general, but his letters and his leadership arguably had a more lasting impact than many of them. So let's dig in and investigate the man behind this incredible legacy. Now, before we get into his life story, let's just quickly establish why he is so important. I mean, what did he actually do that was so foundational?
Just look at this. The sheer breadth of his influence is kind of staggering. He's considered one of the very first church fathers. That's a group of super influential early Christian thinkers whose work became foundational. He helped shape the whole idea of a church led by bishops, a structure that not only influenced traditions like the Eastern Orthodox Church, but also set up Rome as a center of Christian governance. The thing to remember here is that he wasn't just a thinker, he was an institution builder.
So, how in the world did one man accomplish all of this? Let's get into his personal story and see what we can uncover. And I gotta tell you, the historical record is pretty sparse, which honestly only makes it more fascinating.
So, here are the basics. We're talking about someone right in the heart of the first century, living from around 35 to 99 AD. And he rose to become the Bishop of Rome, which, for the growing Christian community, was a position of incredible importance.
So, what we think we know is that his story probably starts not in Rome, but in Alexandria, Egypt. He converts to Christianity during the reign of Emperor Vespasian. And that's pretty much all we know for sure about his early days. It just perfectly highlights this huge contrast between his humble, almost unknown origins and the towering historical figure he would become.
You know, to really get a handle on Clement, you have to understand the world he lived in. And for a Christian leader in first-century Rome, that world was incredibly dangerous.
This timeline really puts it all into perspective. He converts under Vespasian, has to survive a period of intense persecution under Emperor Domitian, and then gets appointed Bishop of Rome by Emperor Trajan. He's navigating the highest levels of power and peril for his entire adult life.
Yeah, let's not sugarcoat this at all. Just being a Christian in Rome was risky, but being a Christian leader, that was a potential death sentence. This wasn't some cozy job with a corner office. It was a position of immense personal danger.
And that danger was very real. Tradition holds that Clement was ultimately martyred for his faith during those persecutions under Domitian. This tells us that everything he worked for, every single letter he wrote, was done under the constant shadow of death. The stakes just could not have been any higher.
The fact that he was martyred just underlines how high those stakes were. He wasn't just thinking in the abstract, he was trying to build a system that was designed to outlast him, to outlast the very persecution that took his life. So what was this blueprint? What were the big ideas he put forward?
This slide just lays it out so clearly. The early church was facing a huge identity crisis. You had disunity, nasty internal conflicts, and theological arguments everywhere. There was a very real danger the whole movement could just splinter and fall apart. Clement's solution? It was brilliantly practical. Create a clear, bishop-led hierarchy for structure, use letters to give clear guidance, and rally everyone around a common faith and practice. He was literally bringing order to chaos.
And he built this whole thing on 3 core ideas, 3 pillars. First, Christology. He really hammered home that Jesus was both fully divine and fully human. Second, eschatology. He taught a belief in a future judgment day, which gave believers a powerful moral and spiritual focus. And third, church governance. He was a huge advocate for bishops having authority, a clear chain of command that would have felt stable and familiar in the highly structured world of the Roman Empire.
And if you had to boil all his work down to just one essential goal, this would be it: unity. For Clement, this wasn't just a nice idea, a let's all get along kind of thing. No, this was a survival strategy. He knew that a fragmented movement, pulled apart by infighting, would never survive the immense pressure from the Roman Empire. Every letter, every decision was all about forging this common identity.
So, how did this intense focus on unity actually play out over the long run? Let's take a look at the permanent mark it left on history. This chart is a fantastic visual summary. His influence on church structure was high. He created a model that would last for centuries. His impact on theological doctrine was significant, defining core beliefs. But his most important contribution, the one everything else is built on, it was foundational, the very idea of Christian unity.
So here's the bottom line. Clement of Rome's greatest legacy was providing a framework that held a fragile community together during a time of intense crisis. He was the architect who drew up the plans for a structure that could actually withstand the storms of the Roman Empire and beyond.
And that's really why he still matters today. Clement's challenge from nearly 2,000 years ago, it raises a really powerful question for us. In our own, often divided world, what does true unity actually require? What are the shared principles, the common ground that can hold a community together? That's the enduring question Clement's legacy leaves us with.